Your Jeep had features in the 60s and 70s that modern SUVs still haven't figured out. Engines that outlast today's tech, 4x4 systems you could shift on the fly, and designs every brand copied decades later. Today, we're counting down the vintage Jeep features so far ahead they still feel advanced, and number 1 makes modern SUVs look over-engineered. Number 15, the Tornado Overhead Cam Engine. Nobody talks about this engine anymore, and that's a real shame because the 1963 Wagoneer came with a Tornado 230 cubic inch straight 6, and it was the very first overhead cam engine ever produced in America by a major manufacturer. Think about that for a second. While Detroit was still building old pushrod V8s like it was 1955, this little Jeep had a cam riding directly on top of the cylinder head, the same setup that Ferrari and Jaguar were using in their European sports cars. It made 140 horsepower and 210 pound-feet of torque, which does not sound like much, but the engine was so refined for its time it only needed an oil change every 6,000 miles and a major service every 30,000. Modern Honda owners brag about that interval today. Jeep was doing it back in 1963. The Tornado was designed by an engineering team led by A.C. Sampietro, and the development cost Willys Motors about $20 million at the time, which would be over $200 million in today's money. But the Tornado was almost too advanced for the average American driver, and that brings us to a feature that goes the complete opposite direction. Number 14, the bomb-proof AMC Inline 6. So Jeep built this fancy overhead cam engine, but they figured out something most automakers never learned. Sometimes the smartest move is making something so simple it physically cannot break. And that's where the AMC 4.0 Inline 6 comes in. Built from 1987 all the way through 2006, this engine has a cult following bigger than most religions. According to SlashGear's reliability breakdown, one Cherokee owner clocked 500,000 miles on his original 4.0 without a single rebuild. Jeep forum threads are packed with owners reporting 300,000, 400,000, even 600,000 miles on engines that just refuse to die. The reason is almost insulting in how basic it is. No overhead cam, no turbo, no direct injection, just a cast iron block with hydraulic lifters, push rods, and rockers. The engine produced 190 horsepower and 225 pound-feet of torque in the Cherokee, with the best model years running from 1995 through 1999, according to multiple Jeep technical sources. Compare that to a modern 2024 Ford EcoBoost, where the timing chain stretches at 80,000 miles, and you are looking at a $4,000 repair. The 4.0 just keeps running. RepairPal lists the Wrangler's annual maintenance cost at $694, which is half of what most modern luxury SUVs cost to maintain. But reliability is one thing, and the way Jeep got that power to the ground is a whole other level of insane. Number 13, the original Quadra-Trac system. In 1973, the Jeep Wagoneer rolled out with something called Quadra-Trac, and this was the world's first automatic full-time four-wheel drive system. Before this, every single 4x4 on the planet required the driver to physically get out, lock the hubs, climb back in, and shift a separate lever just to engage four-wheel drive. Quadra-Trac killed all of that. The Borg-Warner 1339 transfer case used a center differential with a clutch pack that automatically split torque between the front and rear wheels, and you could lock it with a vacuum switch right there in the glove box. According to the Novak Conversions technical guide, this was also the first chain drive transfer case ever used in mainstream truck production, and the first ever made with an aluminum case. Drivers stopped thinking about it. Today, the average Toyota driver still has no idea their AWD system is basically a copy of what Jeep figured out in a Detroit factory 5 decades ago. And speaking of figuring things out first, the next feature changed the entire car industry. Number 12, the Uniframe construction. In 1984, the Jeep Cherokee XJ rolled out with something Jeep called Uniframe, and according to the Autopian's deep dive, it was the first mass-produced civilian 4x4 ever built with full unibody construction. Now this matters because every single SUV you see on the road today, your Toyota RAV4, your Honda CR-V, your Tesla Model Y, all of them copied this idea. Jeep welded a ladder frame directly into the floor pan, creating a structure with about 3,200 spot welds per body. And the result was a Jeep that weighed 1,200 pounds less than the previous Cherokee, while keeping 90% of the interior space. Lighter meant better fuel economy. Stiffer meant better handling. The XJ was 4 inches lower, 6 inches narrower, and 31 inches shorter than its predecessor, with better approach angles, better departure angles, and better articulation. That's why people still pay $15,000 for rusty XJ Cherokees today. They got the formula so right in 1984 that nobody has actually improved on it since. But the suspension underneath that body was an entirely different masterpiece. Number 11. The Quadralink suspension. Jeep's vice president of engineering back then was a guy named Roy Lunn, and this is the same Roy Lunn who designed the original Ford GT40 race program before he came to Jeep. According to the Wikipedia XJ Cherokee entry, Lunn invented something called Quadralink suspension specifically to stop the XJ from rolling over, which was a huge problem with tall 4x4s back then. Quadralink used 4 trailing arms and a track bar to control the solid front axle, and it gave the Cherokee a level of articulation that modern independent front suspensions still cannot match. Modern Wranglers, the JL and the new Rubicon, still use a version of this exact system today because nothing else flexes the way solid axles do. Off-road guys will tell you straight up, an independent front suspension might handle better in a parking lot, but try crawling over a boulder field and you'll wish you had what Roy Lunn built in 1984. Speaking of stuff Jeep did first, this next one is going to make Range Rover owners cry. Number 10. Independent front suspension on a 4x4. Way back in 1963, the original Wagoneer offered something nobody else even attempted: independent front suspension on a 4-wheel drive vehicle. Hot Cars magazine confirmed this was a $160 option on the rear-wheel drive Wagoneer, and the front used protected torsion bars and enclosed axle shafts, which gave you 2 swing axles up front. The Wagoneer could glide over uneven terrain like a luxury sedan while still going off-road. No other automaker matched this for decades. The Range Rover did not arrive until 1970. Mercedes had no IFS on a 4x4 until the G-Wagon showed up in 1979. Even today, when you buy a $90,000 Land Cruiser and pat yourself on the back for owning something refined, you're driving a set-up Jeep already pioneered when JFK was still in the White House. But comfort is one thing, and what they did in the cabin was just as far ahead. Quick pause. If you own a Jeep or you're thinking about getting one, this is important. I put together a simple system that shows exactly how to make it last and avoid expensive mistakes. It's called the 500,000-mile Jeep Blueprint. Links in the description if you want to check it out. Number 9. Luxury features as standard equipment. Check this fun fact ABC News dug up about the 1984 Jeep Grand Wagoneer. It came standard with leather upholstery, power windows, air conditioning, an AM/FM and CB stereo, and wood grain exterior trim, all included in the base price. That was an industry first. Cadillac was not doing that. Mercedes was not doing that. Lincoln was not doing that. You had to pay extra for power windows on a Lincoln Town Car in 1984, but Jeep just threw them in for free. The 1966 Super Wagoneer also came with a push-button radio, a 7-position tilt steering wheel, ceiling courtesy lights, factory air conditioning, a power retracting rear window, power brakes, power steering, and a console-mounted TH400 automatic transmission. Read that list again. That's a 1966 vehicle. A lot of homes had no air conditioning in 1966, but Jeep was already putting it in trucks. But all that comfort would be useless without something to keep you safe, and that's where Jeep flipped the script again. Number 8. The first SUV driver-side airbag. In 1993, the Jeep Grand Cherokee ZJ literally crashed through a glass wall at the Detroit Auto Show, with Chrysler President Bob Lutz and Detroit Mayor Coleman Young inside. According to the official Jeep brand history page, it became the first SUV ever to come with a standard driver-side airbag. Now that might sound boring today, but check the context. Ford had no standard airbag in the Explorer until 1995. Chevy had none in the Tahoe until 1995. Toyota had none in the 4Runner until 1995. Jeep beat all of them by 2 full years. The ZJ also had standard 4-wheel anti-lock brakes, which was another industry first for the SUV class. According to the Jeep Forum Buyer's Guide for the ZJ, that first model year hit 190,395 in sales, helping push Jeep to 480,000 total units, the brand's biggest year ever at that point. They did not just lead, they lapped the competition. And while everyone else was scrambling to catch up, Jeep was already working on the next big thing. Number 7. The solid Dana front axle. Modern luxury SUVs almost all use independent front suspension because it rides smoother on pavement. But when the road ends and the trail begins, that smooth ride becomes a death sentence. According to multiple Jeep technical sources, Jeep stuck with the solid Dana 30 and Dana 44 front axles all the way through the Cherokee XJ, the Wrangler YJ, the Wrangler TJ, and into the Grand Cherokee ZJ for one simple reason. Solid axles flex more, articulate more, and brake less. A Dana 44 from 1976 will outlast every plastic CV joint in your 2024 Range Rover. There's a reason why hardcore off-road shops still hunt down old Jeep axles to put in custom builds today. They were over-engineered to the point of stupidity, and that's exactly why they still work. But the suspension under those axles got even better, which brings us to a system Jeep launched right at the end of the 90s. Number 6. The Quadra-coil suspension. When the 1997 Wrangler TJ launched, Jeep replaced the old leaf spring suspension with something called Quadra-coil, which used 4 coil springs and a multi-link setup at all 4 corners. The official Jeep history page confirms this gave the TJ way more axle articulation, better ground clearance, and more aggressive approach and departure angles. But the real magic was on the road. The TJ rode like a normal car for the first time ever in Wrangler history, while still beating every competitor off-road. According to Jeep's official archives, nearly 80% of the TJ's parts were newly designed compared to the old YJ Wrangler, making it the most thorough overhaul the Wrangler had received since the original Quad evolved into the military MB back in World War II. Modern Wranglers, the JK, the JL, even the brand new 4XE, they all still use coil springs at all 4 corners because Jeep figured out the right formula in 1997 and never had to change it. Other automakers are still trying to match that ride quality with air suspension that costs $8,000 to fix when it fails, while a 1997 TJ owner just bolts on a new coil spring for $40 and goes back to wheeling. But comfort and articulation aside, there's something Jeep kept on their vehicles that nobody else dared to keep. Number 5. The fold-down windshield. The original 1940 Willys MA had a windshield you could fold flat against the hood, and according to the Jeep brand history page, that exact feature is still on the Wrangler today, 86 years later. Nobody else has this. Not the Bronco, not the Defender, not the G-Wagon. You cannot fold the windshield down on a $200,000 Mercedes G63, but you can do it on a $30,000 base Wrangler Sport. And it's not just for show. Jeep originally designed this for combat photography in World War II, so soldiers could shoot rifles or take pictures over the hood while moving. Today, off-road guys use it for rock-crawling visibility and overland photography in the desert. Modern automakers will not touch this design because of safety regulations and the cost of engineering a windshield that meets crash standards while also folding flat against the hood. Jeep figured it out 80 years ago and just refused to let it die. And while we're on stuff that folds and removes, this next one is a feature that's becoming literally illegal. Number 4. Removable doors and roof. You can pull the doors off a Jeep Wrangler in about 5 minutes with a basic socket set. You can fold the roof back. You can completely remove the hardtop. Try doing any of that on a modern Toyota 4Runner or a Ford Bronco Sport. You cannot, because side curtain airbags and impact sensors are integrated into the doors and pillars. The Bronco kind of mimics this, but the Wrangler still does it best because every single bolt and hinge was designed to come off easily. And it gets wilder. New federal safety regulations are slowly making this harder and harder to engineer. Future Jeeps may not even have removable doors anymore because of side impact crash standards. So that 1997 TJ in your neighbor's driveway might literally be the last generation of vehicles humans get to drive with a topless, doorless, windshield down configuration. That's not nostalgia talking, that's a real engineering reality. But Jeep's most underrated feature is something you've probably never even thought about. Number 3. The round headlights. Round headlights sound dumb to put on a list like this, but hear me out. Modern cars use weird, angular LED projector headlights that look futuristic for about 3 years and then look completely outdated. A round headlight from a 1976 CJ7 is the same exact shape as a round headlight from a 2026 Wrangler. That's 50 years of design consistency that you literally cannot find on any other vehicle on the entire planet. But the practical reason matters more than the aesthetic. Round sealed beam headlights cost $20 to replace at any auto parts store, and you can pop them out with a screwdriver in about 90 seconds. A modern LED projector headlight for a Range Rover or a BMW X7 can cost between $1,500 and $3,000 per side, and that's before installation labor at the dealership. The Jeep stuck with the round shape because it was cheap, durable, and worked perfectly under every condition. Every other automaker abandoned this shape for fashion. Jeep abandoned fashion for function, and that decision saved Wrangler owners millions of dollars in repair bills over the decades. And speaking of function, this next feature is so iconic it is literally trademarked. Number 2, the 7-slot grille. You'd think a grille is just a grille, but the Jeep 7-slot grille has been on every vehicle the brand has built since 1945, and it's not just for looks. The 7 slots were originally engineered to maximize airflow to the radiator while preventing rocks, branches, dust, and mud from getting into the engine bay. Modern crossovers have gone to giant gaping mesh grilles that scoop up debris and crack on the highway when a pebble flies up at 70 miles per hour. The Jeep 7 slot is small enough to filter, big enough to cool, and tough enough to take a direct hit from a tree branch and just keep going down the trail. It's also one of the most recognizable design features in automotive history. You can identify a Jeep from 500 feet away in the dark just by the grille shape alone. Try doing that with a 2024 Hyundai. But we saved the absolute best for last, and this one is going to make every owner of a brand new SUV feel like they wasted their money. Number 1, shift-on-the-fly 4-wheel drive. In 1984, Jeep introduced something called Select-Trac alongside the new Cherokee XJ, and according to the Jeep brand technical history, this was the first true shift-on-the-fly 4-wheel drive system on a passenger SUV. You could go from 2-wheel drive to full-time 4-wheel drive without stopping, without slowing down, without even taking your foot off the gas pedal. You just pulled the lever or flipped the switch, and the system engaged instantly. Modern AWD systems do this, but they are full of clutches, electronic actuators, and computer modules that fail. A 1984 Select-Trac transfer case is purely mechanical. It uses gears, chains, and a viscous coupling. It cannot fail electronically because it has no electronics. There are 1985 Cherokee XJs still running today on their original transfer cases with 400,000 miles on the clock. There is no 2024 Audi Q7 that will ever achieve that mileage because the Quattro system has too many sensors, too much software, and too many ways to break down on you. Jeep figured out 40 years ago that the simplest solution is usually the best one in the long run, and they were right then, and they are still right today in 2026. So now I'm curious, what's one vintage Jeep feature you wish they never got rid of? Or which one surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe. I break this stuff down every week. And there's another video on your screen right now that dives even deeper into Jeep secrets. Go check that out. I'll see you there.